body count, let's move on. It doesn't matter as long as sex is consensual, pleasurable, and, you know, everyone wants to try things. Like that's their prerogative, and it has nothing to do with like whatever people are concerned about the most. What is it? Like, um, oh, her vagina is too loose, right? Like,
Right.
let's move on from that.
Hello, everyone. I am Michelle Melville Kashan. I am the Community and Content Director here at Sexual Health Alliance. Today, we're shining a spotlight on the powerful and essential work of sex educators, professionals who are reshaping how we understand intimacy and pleasure. In a world where misinformation and shame around sexuality still run pretty deep, sex educators are leading the way in creating safer, more informed, more empowered conversations. I'm thrilled to be joined by someone who embodies that mission, Dr. Tara, a trailblazer in the field of sex education. Welcome, Dr. Tara.
Hi, I hope you're having an orgasmic day.
I love it. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I wear four hats. I have many jobs, as many of us do, right? So I wear four hats. The first one is as a professor. I am a tenured associate professor at Cal State University Fullerton, and I teach sexual and relational communication as well as quantitative research methods. And whatever academic work that I do, including research, advising graduate students, is within the realm of my academic job as a professor. My second hat is private practice. I have a sex and relationship coaching practice that I see clients regularly and I help them either in person or an online consultation via Zoom. The third one is social media. I do a lot of social media content. So I guess I am an influencer of some sort. So I do a lot of social media content. I also do my own podcast called Luvbites by Dr. Tara podcast, where we talk about sexual exploration, relationship tips, whatnot. And then my fourth hat is media personality. And I'm on a TV show called Celebs Go Dating. It's a huge reality TV show in the UK. And I'm about to go back actually to film season 14. I've been on it for the last two seasons. This will be my third season, but it's a very popular show. As you can see, it's 14 seasons. I didn't even know that TV can have 14 seasons. And then I'm also the new host or co-host of Loveline, the iconic radio show from the 90s and early 2000s with Dr. Drew.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. You do so many interesting things,
Thank you so much. I know I have so many hats. I'm like taking this off, taking this on, or maybe actually I wear all of them at once.
right? Right. All at once. All right. So, everyone, if you don't know already, Dr. Tara will be presenting at our online event happening April 12th and 13th, Sex Education, Coaching, and Program Development. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about at that event?
Yes, so I'm very excited to kind of mix and match everything that I do into this presentation. I'm going to start off talking about university program slash curriculum development because that is what informs all my other work. So I'll talk about how I developed that curriculum and that syllabus and what's included on there and what were the considerations when I created that course and syllabus. It's Spoiler alert, it's based off of my textbook that I co-authored with two other sexual communication professors. So I will start with that, talk about that process, and then we'll move towards my personal course that I created under my brand Love Bites that I put out for the masses. And then we'll move to how I adapt all of that content in academia, which is usually a very lengthy conversation about different concepts about sexuality. A lot of you that will be watching, listening, are within the realm of sexuality education of some sort, whether you're coaches, therapists, educators. So you know that, these concepts are not easy to talk about in 30 seconds. But somehow, just for the last couple of years, I was able to translate some of that concepts into my social media, and it became very, very popular. It blew up, and I have millions of followers, which I'm very grateful for, to help the masses become more sexually confident. So I'll talk about the process of adapting that into social media content and educating the masses from there. My main followers are Gen Zs and millennials. So I'll be focusing on how to translate hard concepts and speak to Gen Zs.
Yes. Oh, all of that is going to be so fascinating. I am so excited to learn from you.
Thank you. I'm really excited. This is the first of a kind. Like this is the first speech or presentation that I'm doing around this topic.
Oh, it's going to be so good. So, your platform, Love Bites, is all about modern sex and relationship education. And so, what inspired you to create it?
Honestly, my students. My students and my at the time failing relationship moment, which was my divorce.
Yeah.
It was really transformative in a way because I have always taught sexual communication and relational communication in college. I've taught it for many, many years because even when I was a PhD student, I was already teaching those courses. But at Cal State Fullerton, my students were very engaged in the content within the class. And I remember teaching and teaching, and at 32 years old, I got my tenure and promotion, which was
Wow.
the youngest person in my department to get tenure. And I just thought, what's next? Because for me, getting tenure was sort of the pinnacle of my academic career. So I just thought, like, what next? Like, what would make me feel even more fulfilled, and what would actually bring me more fun?
Yeah.
Fun, excitement, novelty. And I was talking to my students about like, I'm thinking I might start a podcast. And my students were like, you should start a podcast and social media to go along with it. Because in order to funnel people, this is my student talking. In
Yeah.
order to funnel people into like listening to your podcast, you should have social media too. And so, yeah, with their like I just take advice from Gen Z all the time. Like my whole team, I have 5 people. My whole team's Gen Zs. I
Yeah.
only listen to Gen Zs. but, but basically, my students were like, "Yeah, you should have." So one of my students helped me create my podcast
Wow.
many years ago. And so with the podcast, I started social media to kind of have like a holistic social media career. And I never thought about it becoming so popular. I just thought I'll make some content, and it's whoever gets it out there will get it. Like the universe will
Yeah.
work her ways, right? And yeah, within 1 year, I was able to hit like 1 million followers on TikTok, which I was so surprised about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it all started with my students, plus my personal motivation at the time of going through a divorce from my first marriage and learning a lot and actually shifting perspective for myself from being ashamed of being a divorced woman to really like step into my power and be like, whoa, now that I'm divorced, like I can talk about whatever I want. And I can even talk about divorce and I can relate to millions of people that have gone through divorce. No one else understands unless you've gone through it. So for me, I was like, this is power. So I stepped into my power. I spoke the truth. And every day ever since, I've been speaking truth and sharing my personal life online.
Oh, I love that so much. And I think a lot of people in the sexual health space start out with that. It's like their own personal journey and they become empowered and go on to empower other people. We see a lot of that with our students in our program. It does. It starts out as like this personal journey and then they go on to educate the masses, which is so amazing.
Yeah, and my now husband is a big fan of what I do because he's like, well, every day you talk about sex, so every day you're kind of horny, right? I'm like,
Love it.
sometimes, yes, a little bit, depends on the day. But yeah, he's such a huge supporter in my life, and I'm very grateful because with all these little ingredients of my life, like a supportive husband for my career, which is quite unique and outspoken, I talk about our sex life a lot online,
Yeah.
and my team and my manager and my friends. I mean, I have such a good ecosystem going on that supports sex positivity moving forward.
Oh, I love that so much.
Thank
All
you.
right. So, as you mentioned, you're now the new host of Loveline, which one of the previous hosts was Shaw's very own Dr. Chris Donahue.
Yes.
So, Dr. Chris Donahue also happens to be Shaw's Director of Clinical Education and a longtime leader of our annual conference. So, how do you see your role on Loveline aligning with your work in sexual health education?
Oh, very much so. It's very intertwined. I think when they came up with the idea of rebooting the show, they were thinking of getting a female perspective on the show because they already had a co-host that was a male,
Hmm.
or is. He's not dead. Kevin Kenny, shout out. He's an amazing radio host. So Kevin Kenny, my co-host, he's a very seasoned radio host, and they wanted to reboot the show with him on it.
Yeah.
So there's already a male, and they were like, we want a female perspective because so far Loveline had always had male perspectives, whether, like heterosexual men or LGBTQ community, but they were like, we didn't really have a strong like co-host host vibes for Loveline that's a female. So they were looking for a female co-host. And they reached out to me via DM on Instagram, actually.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons why everyone watching and listening should have social media.
Yeah.
Uh, and grow a strong presence on it because they reached out on Instagram. And I mean, this is like a huge corporation, right? Like K-Rock, it's a part of Odyssey, like, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. They still reach out via DM. You
Oh,
know
I
what I mean?
love
Like
that.
they didn't go through like email or publicists. Like they just reach out
Right.
via DM. Like, and that's, yeah, to me, I mean,
Slide into
you
your
know,
DMs, casual,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, like power of social media really just speaks for itself. Like I have had lots of opportunities that just came through there. But yes, so they reached out via DM and they were like, "We're looking for a female co-host of a reboot of this show. Have you thought about being a radio host?" And I said, "No. I've never thought about being a radio host. I'm a professor. Like I've never thought about doing any of these things."
Yeah.
And so they were like, "Yeah, would you mind like jumping on a call?" And so I jumped on a few calls, kind of like an audition calls,
Ooh.
with like the president or regional president of K-Rock and Odyssey. And so, yeah, when I learned that I got the gig, I was super excited because I'm a big fan. I've listened to Loveline so many times, and my husband is a huge fan. He's always sending me like old episodes of like funny moments and stuff like that. So I don't know who was more excited, me or my husband, because he was super excited.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. All right. So, what are some key topics that you believe every sex educator should include in their curriculum?
Key topics. First, I would say sexual self-concept because that stems from intrapersonal communication, so communication from within. Like one needs to know who one is sexuality wise in order to communicate that up front, which is then my second topic would be sexual communication. But I think everybody knows that. It's just the way to teach it in a way that people feel like it's relatable and it's doable and it's not too theoretical. And the third one, I would say sexual exploration and like what that means, what it can mean based off of, just theory and research, but also based off of like the subjective experience of each person. So yeah, these would be top three. And for me, it comes from intrapersonal perspective, interpersonal perspective, and then kind of societal and cultural perspective of what we can explore, what's considered taboo, but like what does it mean to even jump into taboo? So that would be the overall of what I think should be included.
Yeah, those are great topics. Love that.
Thank you.
So, we were talking about social media earlier. So, social media is full of sex tips and advice, but not all of it is accurate. So, how do you recommend people separate solid sex education from the misinformation online?
Oh, yeah. I always encourage people to do the work. Like, if you come across someone that says something quite outrageous, like, body count matters, and if she's slept with more than three people, she's worthless, man.
Yeah.
If you come across outrageous statements and you're not sure if it's true, Google that person, look them up. What sort of credentials do they have? Have they studied this for a long time? Have they researched this for a long time? Have they taught this for a long time? Or not even a long time, because sometimes you can have a very well-versed certified sex coach that's like only a year in, but what sort of credentials do they have, right? To me, I listen to people that have credentials. And I also listen to people who have lived that sort of lifestyle for a long time, right? Because there's a difference between like an expert of a topic versus a person that does it. And so on my podcast, we have, doctors or sex coaches and therapists all the time. But I also have people that like do the things,
Yeah.
right? Like if we're talking about swinging, I can talk about swinging with a therapist and it's an interesting perspective. But I also can talk about swinging from couples that have been swinging for 20 years and they will have a lot more juicy stories to tell. So for me, yeah, look up the people always. And I do that even with other news. Like if I read a piece of news or like something about politics and I'm like, is this true? I don't immediately believe it's true. I go Google like what is this about and double check my sources.
Oh, that's such great advice. And I think at Sexual Health Alliance, we take a similar approach to when we plan our online events and we choose our presenters for things. Like number one, yes, we look at credentials, and professional experience, but also number two, lived experience is important, because you can get a value of diverse perspectives from that lived experience.
Yeah, like I'm a professor, so I teach about, for example, polyamory. That's like different non-traditional relational dynamics is a whole chapter in my textbook, right? But I haven't been in a polyamorous relationship. So
Yeah.
I'd rather like hear from like I mean, I love that people love hearing from me, but I also want to share voices of people that have been in poly for, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years because they would know so much more of like what it's actually like with being in it. I value so much that lived experiences.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So we have a lot of mental health professionals who attend our trainings. So what role do you think that sexual health education should play in professional mental health training programs?
I mean, I think there should be a whole like unit about sexual health within mental health professional training programs because you can't separate one's sexual identity and sexual experiences from that person's mental health.
Right.
Very much very much so. Your mental health, or what you would call issues, may come from sexuality related issues. So I think mental health professionals really need a whole unit or extended education or workshops. Um, but more than just, a paragraph or a slide on sexual health, right? Like, I think it's such a big part of someone's mental health and well-being that it needs to be a more significant part of their training.
Yes, I love that. And that's a little bit of our origin story at Sexual Health Alliance because we realized people aren't getting the necessary training, whether it's a
Mhm.
counseling program, social work program, medical school, like they're not getting that comprehensive sexual health training that they need to have these beneficial relationships with clients. So I think, that's part of where we step in to fill the gap as well. And I think it's so important whether, professionals get that education from us or somewhere else that they are getting it to help their clients.
Yeah, I'm 100% for that. SHA is such an admirable organization, and I'm so happy to get to present next week.
Yes, we're so excited to have you. All right, so we're about to wrap things up. So tell me, what are some of the most common misconceptions or myths that people have about sex that you wish you could debunk once and for all?
Oh my gosh, so many. Where do I start? Number one, body count. When can we please freaking move on from this conversation? Oh my gosh. Body count. Let's move on. It doesn't matter as long as sex is consensual, pleasurable, and, you know, everyone wants to try things. Like that's their prerogative and it has nothing to do with like whatever people are concerned about the most. What is it? Like, um, oh, her vagina is too loose, right? Like
Right.
let's move on from that because, we have had gynecologists that have confirmed many times that the vagina is super strong and bounces back from whatever it is. Like a baby is this big, right? Like your penis is not that big. So
Right?
yeah, so the body count and like that misogyny around it needs to go. Another misconception is sex is something you do, it's not something you talk about because talking about it is a mood killer. And to me, that's just from a very uninformed and misguided perspective of what sexual communication is. And when you actually study sexual communication in depth, you would know that it is one of the strongest predictors of long-term sexual satisfaction. And
Yes.
then the third one is um, tantra or Eastern based modalities like sexual meditation, somatic therapy, like things like that are not as valid as talk therapy. That misconception needs to go because there's thousands of years of history in the eastern part of the world, exploring, learning, teaching about sex, and Western educators. Like I'm from Thailand originally, but I am a Western educator because I got my PhD here and I'm very trained in Western academics. But I have been kind of diving into the Eastern philosophies and modalities and its benefits, and I'm mind blown. My mind is blown. So I think that misconception that like the Eastern stuff is woo-woo and the Western stuff is serious, it needs to go because both needs to be combined.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I'm so glad you mentioned that because I think this event happening later this month is a perfect example of that because we're going to have a somatic sex educator panel at this event, So it's like we're combining, like Western, Eastern, maybe more, I don't know, hippie woo woo ideas, with more professional ideas. I'm using air quotes for anybody who's listening.
Right.
So it's like we like to have, because once again, diverse perspectives coming in
Mhm.
because, not one particular culture or one particular profession knows everything about everything, so it's
Right.
nice to have that diversity come in.
Yeah, like what if for thousands of years they said putting rose quartz next to you in the bedroom can like rejuvenate your sexual energy? Like, why would I not believe in that? Right?
Right?
I have rose quartz in my bedroom right now
Yeah.
because an Eastern practitioner had talked about that on TikTok. I'm like, I'll do it. Like, it doesn't cost much. So I'll definitely check it out. So yeah, like I'm a big fan of merging Eastern and Western philosophies.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. All right. My last question for you. We like to leave our audience with a takeaway. So, for any professionals who want to start teaching or facilitating workshops on sexuality, what advice do you have for building engaging, inclusive, evidence-based content? And I know you're going to talk about this much more at the event. So, what's like a little teaser we can leave people with?
Know your audience. I think that's my strongest asset or advantage. This like I look into who my audience is a lot and how do I cater information that is digestible to that specific audience. And I know that there is a sense of like, well, we're providing sex education. It needs to be for every single person on earth. But I also bring something to the table as a put my positionality, right? Like my identity, what I actually know in life versus what other people know better in life than me. So I tend to stay in like my own lane. I create my own lane and I know what works for me and know what works for my audience and what helps them. And I know that there are other practitioners and social media content creators that create content that works for a different group of people as well. So for me, audience analysis is would be my takeaway. Like who is your audience and speaking to them. The I would say I have two more tips if I can share.
Of course, we love it.
Okay, so first is like audience analysis. I think it's super important for people that are continuously making content and not look at your audience and your data analytics, you're missing out. So you definitely want to look at analytics and base your information off of that. The second one is always include humor, even for things that, even for concepts that seem gnarly, find an angle that you could to include humor. Like, and it doesn't have to be my style of humor. It can be your style of humor. And maybe you're like a little bit more, dry and sarcastic, but like insert humor because humor is the best way to lower down shields. And when it comes to sex, we know people have shields up, right? They're like gladiator shields, you know? And if you want to have them lower down their shields, I think humor, it has been proven to be one of the most effective strategies. And then my last tip, I would say, is not only make content that, you feel like is going to be popular in general out there, but also make content that you personally care about. I
Yep.
care about the things I talk about, right? And that's why I talk about it so often. For example, sexual exploration in long-term relationships. I'm in a long-term relationship and I sexually explore and I try to help people be less scared of how to sexually explore or even like how to go to a play party or how to. So for me, it's do what I care about so it doesn't feel like work. If someone else tells me like, okay, do these things, and I'm like, well, but that's not really like my topics. Like, it's not really something that I super care about, then it will feel like work.
Yes.
So yeah,
Well, I think those are great takeaways. For anyone who's watching, if you'd like to learn more from Dr. Tara, please attend our online event happening April 12th and 13th. It's called Sex Education, Coaching, and Program Development. You can get tickets on our website. We'll also have the link in the description below. And if you love this type of content, please subscribe to our channel, like this video. Every month we interview our presenters that come in to present with us, and we meet so many amazing people. So thank you for being with us, Dr. Tara.
thank you.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. Bye.